this week. I'm delighted to be with everybody again today. Chirag is out, so I'll be leading today's final discussion on this important topic on creating extraordinary connection and impact with clients. Is there anybody on the call who was here on this morning's call? Okay, so everybody's calling in from the first time. Okay, got it. Steffi, let me just ask you, you've been so kind of connected to this topic. I'm just curious, why is it that you're showing up with such a focus on this particular aspect of your work? Can you come off mute and tell us?
What do you mean?
Well, you've been very kind of active and thoughtful about all this. I've watched you participate in these calls, and this is like an important topic to you. And I'm just curious, why is it that you have such a strong focus on this?
Well, few reasons. I guess I tend to be a person that people come to talk to often,
Hmm.
or at least end up telling me more than they probably expected to tell me. And
Hmm.
and I did think I was a good listener until we started down this path, and it's been very interesting and very eye-opening. But it's also, to be honest, like very painful too, because I feel like um in this business, it's often like you're like people, they don't really care about you. Well, some,
Hmm.
but like, you're there to service, be it's of service for them.
Right.
And I just find, and it might be like in my personal and professional life, I feel like I'm the giver more than like there's not that back and forth. And so the past 2 weeks has been really interesting because I love helping people, and I love helping them, and I love being solutions oriented, all that stuff. But there's still, like, for me, like a gap, like aside from like my personal like therapist or something, like, or even my, husband and kids at home, but like to have someone, I want to engage with more people who actually are doing what we're teaching people to do. I
Hmm.
feel like in this world, like even just like family holidays and all this stuff, like so many people just think that they're good listeners and they're not. And they just want to tell people about themselves and bring it back to them. And I find that some of the conversations that we've been having the past 2 weeks, I, s- I still think there needs to be some kind of like people need to learn more about like how to like do a give and take in conversations. And I know we're talking more in the business sense, but I just feel a devoid in my personal life of people who actually like listen.
Yep, got it. Thank you. So
Yep.
this is a very common comment that we hear from people. First of all, everybody thinks they're a better than average listener. If I ask people, and I've asked thousands of people, how would you rate yourself as a listener? Everybody says A plus, B plus, A minus. But is that your experience really listening with other people who listen to you? Absolutely not. And we can all point to all kinds of experiences we've had where the person listened poorly to us, which is really too bad. And so remember that the focus here isn't just listening per se, it's about creating a memorable experience that's highly valued by the client. And sometimes that means listening. That's what we are focusing on right now. But you have to remember that your whole business depends on one thing: what happens in that space that you're in with another person one on one, whether it's a pitch, whether it's any part of the process where you're serving the client, whether it's someone who's come back to you after 5 years for the second time around. There's this space that you share with that other person, and that's called your relationship. And what happens in that relationship, good or bad, is what determines the success of your business overall. So if you're going to be successful in your business, you have to be successful in those interactions one-on-one with those people, not just clients, but prospective clients, past clients, people on your team, vendors. How you manage that space, how you master that space is the single most important thing for the success of your business. Yes, getting people into the funnel is important. Yes, managing your CRM is important. Yes, all that stuff is important, but you can do all those things. And if you can't master this space one-on-one with another human being, you still won't succeed. That's why we're focusing on this. So many of you have called us in the last few days or texted us saying, thanks so much for spending more time on this topic because I realize how important it is for me. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to reshare 2 slides from earlier this week in case some people on the call weren't here before or you've forgotten about it. And I'm going to ask you to rethink what we're talking about here and pick one of the items off of either of these slides that you want to concentrate on. And then we're going to break you up into pairs and you'll have a chance to practice that. Or the other person you're with will have a chance to practice that for just a moment. And then we're going to come back and talk about it. Okay, so I'll share a couple slides, then we'll have breakouts, and then we'll come back together and talk a little afterwards. So let me pull up these slides for everybody. 2 important things to think about when listening. First, the listening mindset. Secondly, the listening skill set. Remember that listening is not just an act that you do in the moment. It's something that you bring yourself to. Imagine if you were a performer, let's say you're a concert pianist and you're going to give a concert at Carnegie Hall in New York. Do you think that the mindset that you carry into that act doesn't matter? That you just sit down at the piano and you play perfectly? Or if you're a gymnast and you are going to, be on the biggest stage going for that gold medal at the Olympics, do you think that the mindset that you bring into that doesn't matter? Or how about a golfer who's going to have sink that last putt on the 18th hole? It's not just about hitting the ball. It's about how you bring yourself to it that enables you to hit the ball in the best way possible, right? We want to make sure that we understand that the same thing happens in listening. How you show up in the relationship is absolutely as important as what it is you're doing at the moment. And I'm sure you get this because you want to show up for your clients in some way whenever you're working with clients. But let's think more specifically about what this means as far as listening goes. There's 3 important things. First, to recognize that when someone comes to you and they present something to you, it's a story, it's a thought they have, it's a situation they're facing, whatever's on their mind, they're looking for something that compelled them. It was important enough for them to get up and walk over to you and start a conversation or send a text, email, whatever it is. You need to ask yourself, what is it that they're looking for here? You can't simply give them what you think they need. If you want to serve them well, you have to give them what they want. And very often we think we know what they need when we don't. I used the example before, where someone comes to you and they say, my marriage is falling apart. I think I'm going to have a divorce. And what do you do with that information? What do you do with that listening opportunity? You might start giving advice. Well, maybe you guys should have, go on a weekend together, or have you talked with a marriage counselor? Right? You're giving advice. But the question you can ask yourself is, did this person come to me for advice? And in the case of somebody who's had a rocky relationship for 3 years and they're coming to you as a friend after 3 years, they're probably not looking to you for advice. They probably thought it all through for millions of hours, too many hours. They probably talked it through with a counselor or some other people. They're not looking for advice. Maybe they're just looking for somebody to just be there and support them. Maybe they're just looking to vent. So it's important for us to remember that people come to us for many different reasons. Sometimes they want advice. If that's what they want, you give it to them. Sometimes they want to vent. They just want somebody to listen. Sometimes they want companionship. Somebody comes to them because they come to you because they just want you to be there with them. If a client comes to you and says, I put in 3 different offers on 3 different houses and we've lost everyone, I don't know how I'm going to win a house in this market. The question for you is, what is the client looking for? Are they looking for you to tell them some great new idea that you have for marketing the house better? Maybe not. Maybe they're just looking for someone to commiserate with them because it's frustrating. They know you're doing everything great. They have a lot of trust in you already. They're not asking you to prove yourself or come up with some new idea. Maybe they're just asking to be connected to. So it's important for you not to launch into whatever you think might be best for them. And of course, we often launch into problem solving because we want to solve problems. We want to serve them. But that's our agenda, not necessarily theirs. Second, meet them where they are. Understand what the world looks like from their point of view. This is what listening is. Listening is your opportunity to understand what the world looks like from someone else's point of view. And so that's what you're aiming for here, is to say, I'm going to come into this listening opportunity with an intention and a commitment to understanding what the world looks like from that person's point of view. Not to convince them of mine, not to endorse mine, not to condone mine, not to support mine, but simply to understand where they are and be with that. And second and third, stay with them as long as they need you to be there. If a client comes to you and they're complaining about how tough it is to win a house in this particular market, and you kind of throw something back like, yeah, it sure is. Well, let me tell you all these great things we can do now. They may not be ready to move on to that problem-solving stage. They might need to digest their feelings a little bit more. And so if you rush ahead to the next step in the process before they're ready, they're going to feel that as a disconnect. Kind of like if somebody says to you, you know, my dad just died. And then you say, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. So where should we go this weekend for lunch? Right? They're not ready to launch into the where we're going to have lunch this weekend conversation. They're still thinking about the relative who just died. And so it's important for us to recognize that where they are is where they need to be at that moment. And we can't yank them out of there necessarily and take them somewhere else, even if we think it might be good for them. They will experience that as a disconnect from where they are. So mindset is really about these three things. Think about how you can remember these things and bring them into your next listening opportunity. Listening skill set, 5 skills that you can mix and match according to the situation that will create powerful impacts on people around you in your business and beyond. What are they? First, patient listening. Sometimes this is a huge difference maker in the way we listen. Simply keep your mouth shut, be patient, allow the person to say what he or she wants to say in the way that he or she wants to say it. Instead of jumping in, suggesting words that you think are the right words that they're looking for, which may or may not be, and which may give them the feeling that they are being dictated to or condescended to, something like that. Simply sit back, meet them where they are, and stay with them as they take you where they would like to take you. Second, open-ended questions. These are questions that cannot be answered yes or no. They begin with what, where, when, why, and how. An open-ended question gives you a lot more information than a closed-ended question. As I said on Monday, if you say to the client, did you like the house? Nope. End of the story. But if you say, what did you like about the house? Or what didn't you like about the house? Suddenly you can get a whole bunch of information. So if you never use open-ended questions, you should start sprinkling them into how you communicate. Tell me more statements. That's simply inviting the person to continue talking about some aspect of whatever it is that they're sharing with you. What it essentially says is, I'm interested in continuing to learn more from you. And as Steffi was saying before, we run into a lot of people who aren't listening or don't want to listen. It's rare for somebody to say, I'm interested in continuing to listen to you. So if a client says something like, gosh, I'm so pissed off about not getting a house. I put these 3 offers in, I've lost every time, I've still got no house after X weeks of looking. You say, tell me more about how that's impacting you and your family. Could be, right? Or tell me more about how that feels for you. Or tell me more about what's the biggest challenge for you with that. And maybe for them, it's something about not being able to pay their bills, or maybe they made some kind of a plan to take a new job within 3 months or something, and now it looks like they won't be able to take it because they won't be able to move fast enough, something like that. Tell me more invites them to keep talking. Paraphrasing. Paraphrasing is feeding back in your own words what you heard, both the facts and the feelings if they shared them. Chirag does this all the time on the calls. He'll say, so what I hear is important to you is X. Or what I hear you saying is X. That's what paraphrasing is, a very powerful tool that we don't use so often, many of us. But if you do, it's proof to the other person that you are actually listening because you fed it all back. And I guarantee you this can change your relationship with people. I guarantee you this is going to be the difference between getting a couple of pitches or not. If you can feed back what you heard from a person about what matters most to them, in some cases, you'll be the only person doing that. And that's going to get you the sale all by itself. Finally, clarifying, what do you mean by? Sometimes people use expressions that have meaning to them, but you may not understand the meaning, and you shouldn't let those go by. Just this morning, I was talking with a client, and she said, I was having a meeting with so-and-so, and it was mind-blowing. Well, I don't know what she means by mind-blowing, so I said, well, what do you mean by mind-blowing? And she proceeded to tell me what was she was talking about. We have a lot of phrases like that. It's a no-brainer. It was mind-blowing. Can't get my head around it. Right? Things like that come up quite often in our speech, and we want to make sure that we understand what the other person is really talking about. So the first 3 skills here are about getting more information. The second two, number 4 and 5 are about getting more accurate information. And if you can do both of those things, you're setting yourself up to serve the client. So pick one of these skills. We're going to give you 5 minutes to pair up with somebody. We want you to practice one of these skills, just one. Don't practice them all, just pick one and focus on that. All right, I'm going to pull this down. Okay, So we're going to break you up into pairs now. Do we have an odd number here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, so if you have an odd number, you might end up in a group of 3. It doesn't matter. One of you can be an observer. So one person here is going to be the speaker. That person is going to share a real scenario that you've heard from a client. The real scenario is something that a client has said to you. I'm so frustrated that I can't win a house. Or what's it going to take for me to win a house? Or I thought we would have gotten a higher price for our house, or whatever it is that someone said to you recently, or it doesn't have to be recent, a real story. And you'll be that person, right? So you'll just start off the conversation by saying that. The other person in the pair will listen and practice one of these skills. The purpose here is not to solve your problem. It's not to say the perfect thing to the client in that particular situation. It's for the person who's listening to practice for 5 minutes what it's like to use one of these particular skills. Brooke, did you put up the 5 skills? Okay, got it. Yep, great. Okay, so 4 and 5, 1 to 3. Okay, so 1 to 3 is about getting more information. Number 4 and 5 is about getting accurate information. Because if you don't get the whole story, chances are you may not serve the client in the best way possible. And if you don't get the accurate story, same thing again. So one of your goals in listening is to get the whole story and get it right. Sometimes we say, get it all, get it right. Okay, so I'm going to put you into pairs now. You might end up in a group of 3. Don't worry about it. Just practice for 5 minutes. A couple of people have said this morning, it's hard to kind of get used to this, and I feel awkward doing it. The only way to get smooth in doing this is to do it. There's no way around it. You have to go through it. And so pair you up, 5 minutes, come back together, and we'll talk about it. When you get the message at the end, we're going to close the groups. You don't have to click a button or anything at that time. It will close automatically for you in 60 seconds at the end. Okay, everybody got it? Great. I'm going to pair you up. So we have a color thing there, and you just want to hit it and
get it out of the way. Yeah,
it happens all the time. So who was the speaker and who was the listener in your case?
Well, Anne was the agent, so the listener. I was the speaker, but I had to give her a little bit of backstory about what I was speaking about. So honestly, we didn't get very far at all.
I say, got it. Okay, well,
yeah.
You can do it another time. You can get together.
Yeah.
You know, this is a practice. Okay, everybody's back. So welcome back, everybody. Hopefully you had a chance to practice one skill for a couple of minutes there. What we find is that people have trouble doing this for more than like 2 or 3 minutes. So if you had any trouble with it yourself, don't worry about it. You're in good company. But as I said before, the only way to get on the other side of this to mastery is to really practice it regularly. These opportunities to practice come up all the time, which is why we want you to just kind of get used to it in these calls. But the opportunities are all around you all the time. You listen to how many clients a week? How many conversations do you have with clients a week? Dozens, hundreds, whatever it might be. Or other people you work with on your team, vendors you work closely with, Compass people you work closely with. In so many of these cases, you need to be clear that some of them are listening opportunity conversations. And when they are, you want to get into your listening mindset and practice these listening skills. So let me ask the people who are the speakers to type into the chat box how you felt with the person listening to you. How did it feel to you to have that person listening? Just type a word or two into the chat box that describes what that was like. Freeing, heard, great. Very helpful. If I ask you to think of some times in your life where you were really heard by somebody and what it felt like, chances are you'd use words like that. You'd say, I felt respected, I felt included, I felt heard, I felt valued. These are wonderful things to make somebody feel, and they can endear that person to you for life. And if you think of situations in your life where you really needed somebody to hear you and they were just not listening, many people would describe those experiences as frustrating, irritating, alone, unsupported, disrespected. And the reality is that as a listener, we all have the opportunity to create the former experience for someone else and the latter, depending on how we listen. In fact, if we choose to really be careful about this, we could create consistently the former, like valued, heard, helped, all those things. We can do that every time we listen, but it starts with just being able to do it once and then doing it over and over again. Now, for the people who are listening, type a word or two into the chat box that describe how it was for you to listen. What was that experience like for you? I see difficult. Who else? What was it like for you to listen during that exercise? Patience to listen, sure. It takes a lot of patience to listen. One of the biggest problems we have in listening is that we don't have time, right? When somebody starts talking to us and we don't want to listen, what we're really saying is something else is more important to me right now than listening to you right now, right? I have to get an email sent out, or I have to talk to so-and-so, or I have to finish this report, or whatever it is. I'm on my way to a meeting. What we're saying is at that moment, my agenda matters more to me than your agenda. And this is the crux of every issue. How can we put our own needs and interests aside for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever it is, in order to make the interaction about that person's agenda? Because if you go back to that fundamental question, what does relationship mean to me? Relationship means a couple of different things. It means connecting, it means contributing, it means serving. And in your business, absolutely, your job is there to serve the client. But it's not just there to serve the client by getting the house into the MLS correctly, or negotiating effectively. That stuff, of course, it's important, but it's also the experience that the person has along the way. You can do everything that you're supposed to do, but you can do more than that. Think about if you were to hire a surgeon, and a surgeon could do this surgery for you. Very often we're interested not just in a surgeon who's capable and competent to do the surgery well, but we want a doctor who has a, quote, good bedside manner. If you had a choice between having a surgeon who was a great surgeon but had terrible bedside manner, and another surgeon who was also a great surgeon who also had a great bedside manner, which one would you choose? Probably the second one, right? If that's the case, then you're saying it matters to me how I experience this person, not just what he or she does for me. And of course, this varies from client to client, but you can't overestimate the importance of the client having an awesome experience at the time. And it's not enough to say, I love my clients, I'm a professional, I'll do anything for my clients. That's just blah, blah, blah talk that you might say to me or to each other or to somebody else. The real proof is in the pudding. What happens in that space when you're actually, interacting with another? Susan, I saw you waving your hand. Was that to us or was that to something else?
I was actually waving to Anne, who said hi, but
Okay.
I really wanted to share something, David. When I first started in real estate, a very experienced, like 30-year agent was helping me find my way. And he taught me that anytime I meet with a client, the first thing I have to do once we get settled in is say, before we start, is there anything on your mind that you'd like to talk about?
Mm-hmm.
Because he said they can't hear what you say because all they can do is think about what they want to talk about. And if
Yes.
you can't get it out in the open first, they're not going to hear anything you say about the process or disclosures. So I just wanted to share that because
Absolutely. Thank you.
Served me so well.
That's such an important point, and it really speaks to a fourth item that we could put on the mindset list, which I often talk about with clients, and that is asking yourself, what is this other person bringing into this interaction right now? If the other person almost had a car accident 5 minutes before meeting you, or if the other person is frustrated because they put in 3 offers on 3 different houses and didn't get any of them, and they're just generally frustrated, or is this person wondering about whether we're going to be able to get the price that we wanted for the house as we originally discussed, right? All these cases, this person is bringing this stuff into the interaction at that moment. That's where they are. And so when we're talking about meeting somebody where they are, it's just what she's talking about here. When Susan says, what is it that's on their mind? Asking that question helps you connect to what is on their mind. If you come into the conversation with what's on your mind, like, I got to get rid of this client as quick as I can because I have to get something else filed, right? Or I have to get something else done, or I have to go meet somebody else. Guess what? That's not listening, right? That's saying my agenda matters. The other person's agenda doesn't matter as much as mine. And what I want to say is pure listening is it's not about your agenda. As soon as it becomes about your agenda, you're no longer listening. That's what we call assertion. And that's the opposite of listening. And so being aware of what the client is likely to be bringing into the situation at that moment in time can totally change how you address the person. And so it's something else to think about as far as the mindset goes. Think about what the person is likely to bring in. Maybe their kid got a broken leg yesterday, right? Naturally, you want to ask, how's your son doing? Or maybe their kid just got into the college of their dreams and you say, wow, you must be so excited that Susan got into Berkeley or wherever she goes, right? This is a way of connecting with the client with what matters to them and their agenda. And it's not just necessarily about the house. It's about what they're bringing into the conversation. So it's not enough for us to sit here on this call and say, well, I'm very professional. I love my clients. I'll do anything for them. It really comes down to, what are you going to do next time you're one-on-one with somebody as soon as we're done with this call, or tomorrow, or the next day and the day after? Mastering the space of this interaction is the most important thing you can possibly do for the success of your business. Miriam, I see you have a hand up. This will be the last one since we're almost out of time.
It's funny, I used to be a good listener. People would comment me all the time, but I've come to realize I need to slow down because we're so busy and tend to be so rushed, and of course ADD and all that good stuff. So these are all great reminders, because I think the main part is for us to slow down and just forget everything else, because I think we have too much on our minds when we sit down.
Thank you, Miriam. This is so true. We've talked about ping, ding, ring, right? We're running around like crazy all for the last few years. Life becomes more and more hectic, but Miriam's right. We cannot allow that to affect how we show up for the client in that moment. In other words, that's carrying all of our own stuff into the conversation rather than making the conversation about them and their stuff. How do you know you're listening well? If somebody says to you, you are a good listener, or they say, thank you for listening. If you hear that, what they're saying is, I've had such a powerfully wonderful experience of being related to by you that I feel compelled right now to say that. I could do anything else that I want with the next 10 seconds of my life, but I'm going to choose to tell you how thankful I feel that you're listening to me. If you never hear that, you're not listening closely enough. My challenge to all of you is, at least once a month, you should be hearing that from somebody. You have hundreds of conversations every month with clients and other people in your life. And if no one ever tells you, thank you for listening, or you're a good listener, you're not listening well enough. That's the proof. Not to say I'm a great listener, but to actually other people say, absolutely, that's the case. So good luck with it, everybody. Stick with it. I recommend you focus on one thing at a time for a minimum of 2 weeks, or make it 4 weeks, and then move on to the next skill, so that you have all those skills somehow mixed into your repertoire. And the art of listening is to draw on those skills and others, but you can start there in a useful way that is kind of invisible to the client, but results in a powerful experience for them. Have a great day, everybody. Get out there and make the contribution that only you can make. And we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you, David.
Thanks, everybody. Look forward to seeing you in Boston.
Could you pull up the mindset slide one more time so I can take a screenshot of it?
Sure.
Or the skill set, whichever one was first.
Yep, let me do that.
Thank you.
There's the skill set. Can you see that one all right?
Yes. Thank you.
And the mindset right there. And you can come back to the more full deck on my session last Monday. So you can look in the platform and pick it up there.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day. See you soon.